As a lot of you are probably aware, we've had some special guests with us most of this week and particularly today. And I am going to introduce Mr. Labens to you, who retired a couple of years ago. He was our social studies curriculum leader, and for many years he worked as the assistant to the superintendent at Central Office for Upper St. Clair. Mr. Tom Labens.
Hi guys, how are you? How'd you like the video? We're just getting started. Now I apologize, some of the alums from 1960 and 61 who were here had to go back on the bus to South Point so they can have the bus come back to pick you up at 2:20. They're having a pizza party and they're taking a nap and they're coming back, 3 buses full for the football game tonight. So hopefully we'll see all of you there. Let's have a round of applause for the people who are here from the class of 1960 and 61 who will be speaking to you. Now, a brief history. Upper St. Clair in the 40s and 50s did not have a high school. K through 9, they went to Fort Koch. It was just called Fort Koch. At that time, the district paid tuition for students to go to Mount Lebanon, Bridgeville, Peters Township, and Bethel Park. Yes, they would graduate with a Mount Lebanon diploma or a Bridgeville diploma, which is now Char Valley. In the mid-50s, those schools got too big. Said, Upper St. Clair, we're not taking any more tuition students. So Fort Koch became K through 12. The first class to graduate with an Upper St. Clair diploma is the class of 1960. The second class to graduate was 1961. They're responsible for Black and White, the Panthers, the Clairvoyant, the St. Clarion, the same letter that you see outside in the showcase. They are the pioneering class that you have the culture to carry on. Let me introduce to you, for some welcoming remarks, Dr. Patrick O'Toole, our superintendent. Dr. O'Toole.
Thank you, Mr. Labens. We've had a wonderful reunion for our original class, our original graduating class, and it's been an educational experience. I know they've been in the classroom speaking to our classes and sharing their wisdom of their careers and their reflections on Upper St. Clair High School and the meaning that it has had for them throughout their lives. And it's been a pleasure to have hosted them in this situation, in this ceremony that we've had today. I want to point out to our students that the respect that we have for those who've gone before us and created this environment. One of the graduates from 1960 said to me, I don't know how you couldn't get up every morning and love to come to school in this atmosphere, in this building, and the teachers and the staff that we have and how wonderful they are. And every now and then we do have to take time to reflect on our good fortune to be here at Upper St. Clair High School. Thank you very much.
May I introduce the principal of Upper St. Clair High School, Dr. Michael Galani.
Thanks, Tom. It's been extremely exciting and an honor to have been able to spend some time with the classes in 1960 and 61 over the last few days. 2 interesting facts that I've found out in conversations with some of the members of the classes. First is Upper St. Clair won their very first football game they ever played as a varsity football team. So hopefully that carries over tonight. And 2, back in 1960, as you know, it was a rural area, and Mount Lebanon people used to refer to Upper St. Clair as the farmers. And you can thank, if you thank this class for one thing, it was that when they chose our mascot, we weren't called the Upper St. Clair Farmers. Instead, they chose the Panthers. Otherwise, at tonight's game, you would have been rooting for the Farmers instead of the Panthers. So if there's one thing you thank them for when you see them around the school, thank them for that. Thank you very much, guys. Hopefully we'll see you at the game tonight.
Thank you, Dr. G. It's my great pleasure to introduce a member of the class of 1960, Dr. George Davis. Dr. Davis came up with an idea, a year or so ago, and talked to Coach Jim Render about this, who talked to Dr. O'Toole and Dr. G about putting together a 50-year class reunion. I was at a meeting, and we got together and been planning this for several months. But Dr. George Davis comes to us with accolades. He was one of the first 3-year letter winners at Upper St. Clair football, basketball, and track. Went on to a stellar education scholarship-wise. Became eventually the president of the University of Vermont. Currently is out in the University of Arizona, where he has 150 various publications. Has been the provost of the University of Arizona, which is only next to the chancellor, and currently is teaching some high-end classes out there in geophysics, geology, things I can't even pronounce, George. At Upper St. Clair, welcome to our alum from 1960, George Davis.
I can't pronounce these things either, but I do know amblygonite. It's a triclinic pinacoidal lithium aluminum fluorophosphate, but we won't talk about that today. Farmers of Upper St. Clair, we had a name for the Mount Lebanon folks as well, cake eaters. We used to refer to Mount Lebanon students, our rivals, as the cake eaters. And because Upper St. Clair, when we were in middle school, we called it junior high, high school, the fields, the gyms, the courts, they were always open for us. And so we had a head start on athletics in Upper St. Clair. Even though we were few in number, we were mighty. And that mighty feeling is going to go into the game tonight as we think about what's going to happen. Now, in the very early 1950s, there were new families. Families were pouring into Upper St. Clair Township. And many of us in the classes of 1960 and 61 were part of those folks moving into rural Upper St. Clair at that time. Some of our classmates were born and raised here in Upper St. Clair. And the schools we went to in Upper St. Clair, there were 3, McMillan, Cook, and Clifton. And Clifton is the closest. Do you know Clifton School, where it was, right down at the bottom of the hill? I told the folks earlier, that's where the policeman came and stopped me this morning as I was driving up the hill that's only for buses in the morning. That was my welcoming into Upper St. Clair. He did a nice job with me. But I attended Clifton School. I moved here in 3rd grade. Clifton School was torn down the next year. It was crumbling. We would pull bricks out of the back of the building. We had these deep, dark basement lavatories, as they were called, bathrooms, and in big rains they would flood. The overpass on 19 right next to Clifton School would have these 18-wheelers rumbling by. It would shake the windows in the school, okay? And some teachers were worried that some truck might go over the edge and come into the school. That prompted some of us a few years later to, in retrospective fashion, compose an alma mater for Clifton School. And if you don't mind, I'll sing it for you. If you don't mind, I'll sing you the Clifton School alma mater. It goes like this. Oh, Clifton High, oh, Clifton High, we will die at Clifton High. Oh, Clifton High, oh, Clifton High, we will die at Clifton High. The bricks will fall upon our heads, and we will go to Beinhauer's dead. Oh, Clifton High, oh, Clifton High, we will die at Clifton High. But you know what? We didn't die at Clifton High because our parents and administrators and school officials said, we're going to build a new school. They built Fort Couch, and then they said, we're going to start a new high school. They started a new high school. The first classes were 60 and 61, and here we are back now, 50 years later. Okay? And don't believe that part about these folks going back to the hotel and taking a nap. Please don't believe that part. They're going to be up and at 'em. Teachers, all the teachers should stand or wave. Where are you right here? The teachers, are we around? Okay. We know, based upon 50 years of experience, that these are also our teachers. You are our teachers, even though we came in a little late. These teachers might appear to be only concerned about the courses that they teach, the homeroom that they run, the athletic teams that they coach, the clubs that they advise. It's not that way. These teachers see the big picture. They know the big picture. They know it's about learning. It's about friendships. It's about getting ready for life, getting young people ready to contribute to society. And we can tell you that's what they do. That's what it's about, big picture. Don't believe it when they say, I'm just an English teacher. And we can tell you on the basis of this reunion, as we come back for the first time in a long time, that the classes of 60 and 61 have contributed in countless ways to society in all different kinds of dimensions. Big, small, in between, engineering, literature, English, nursing, finance, entrepreneurship, and goes. Look at all the folks in this room, all the students. It's a huge impact when USC students go out into society and make a difference. We salute you on that, teachers. And so you students, I mean, are we talking ninth grade and 10th grade here? Is that what we're talking? Okay, stand up a second, please, everybody. The classes of 60 and 61 say to you, you are part of us, we are part of you. Because in the same way that you thrive with friendships, sports, student government, challenging academics, that's what we did as well, in disguise 50 years ago. Okay, thank you for that. But here's the deal. The amazing part of all of this life that we're involved in is that soon you will be graduating. Not so soon, you'll be celebrating your 50th. And when you're celebrating the 50th, this school tradition will be more than 100 years old. And that, to us, is incredible, that we have so much traction and strength as a school over a short period of time. So we wish you well. We hope that you divine for yourself a passion in life that carries all of you forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. I'd like to introduce the president of the senior class, Mr. Harris Beck. Harris, and he has some words and talk about a time capsule. Harris.
Thanks. On behalf of the student body, we want to welcome the graduating classes of 60 and 61. Thanks to you, we still have the traditions such as the alma mater, the panther, and our school colors. And because of you, we no longer have to go to schools, lesser schools such as Mount Lebanon and Chartiers Valley. The objects that we are putting in the time capsule that will represent our generation are the DVDs of the Super Bowl, the 2 Super Bowls that we won recently, and the Stanley Cup. An iPod, a postcard of the Mellon Arena, a recipe for dirt, and our senior t-shirt. Thanks.
Thank you, Harris. Good luck tonight. Now, as part of my contribution, when I left central office to come to the high school, they gave me a piece of the old high school. And they painted it, and it has on there USTC High School, 1999-2000, when this was dedicated. So I give that to the time capsule. From the class of 1960 and 61, Dr. Davis and Ms. Karen Thompson up again one more time to show you what the classes are putting in. Mrs. Thompson.
The tradition of St. Clair to me is very, very dear to my heart. I started first grade at Clifton, which was at the bottom of the hill. Went through 12th grade, went off to college, came back and taught for 30 years in the English department. And it was the best years of my life, and I hope you have the same good wishes. Now, Harris is putting in what's that thing called, an iPod or something? This was our iPod, the little transistor radio developed over in Japan. So that's going in for ours. The class of 1960 kept talking about 78 records. Now, I'm from 61, much younger. But the 78 record, this is it. This is what they listened to. But class of 61, we had something a little smaller called the 45. Now, these will be on display outside the theater. Maybe some of you have seen it. We actually have an original cheerleading uniform, black and white, all black and white. The red was added a tad later. Our first yearbook was the yearbook for 1960. It's on display also, and I always liked their yearbook. I thought it really had class. My yearbook was, I call it flat. That was it. But nonetheless, it holds the treasures of high school for me. And we have a tribute to teachers that George Davis created. He took our yearbooks and he was able to scan the pictures of our teachers. And these are two. Joe Argero was our science teacher, and I can't see who's on the other one. Clarence Brown. Now, the class of 60 didn't have this tradition. 61 did. Mr. Brown said we could get the lowest math grade off our record if the girls dressed up in high heels and nylons and the boys wore ties and coats. And we did it every Friday. That was the tradition. When I came back to St. Clair, and for 50-some years, you see what I wore every Friday, because Friday is Black and White Day.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Whenever I was having my first meeting with Harris and Natalie from the Student Council, and we were talking about what we can do, we talked about a slide rule, and I saw the two students leaning over to each other saying, "What's a slide rule?" So that germed an idea of why don't we do a video of then and now. And through the efforts of Mr. Keith Freilich, a little applause for Mr. Freilich, and the former voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Mr. Lanny Fateri, we have a video presentation, then and now. Mr. Freilich.
50 years. That's a long time by any measure, and especially in the life of a high school. Today we pause to ponder the significance of Upper St. Clair High School's golden anniversary. The 50 years that have passed since Upper St. Clair graduated its first senior class. Did you ever stop to think about how much has changed in the past 50 years? Well, the short answer is a lot. Let's take a look at some of the differences between student life in 1960 and today. First of all, the school itself was a lot different back in 1960. The current high school building did not exist, and Fort Couch School served as Upper St. Clair High School from 1957 to 1962. Students sat in classrooms with flip-top desks, tablets, and slide rules. Today's classes are high-tech. Athletes looked different too back then, different than they do today. And the sports facilities were different also. Today's high school students have first-class athletic facilities. The Upper St. Clair athletic letter looks pretty much the same as it did then. The band back then was much smaller than today's Panther marching band. But the majorettes looked just as sharp then as they do today, and cheerleader dress styles have undergone alterations a bit too in the past 5 decades. Back in 1960, kids wore some pretty fancy duds to school. The guys wore collared shirts and pegged pants, and the girls wore skirts, blouses, sweaters, bobby socks, and penny loafers. Occasionally, the guys and girls would get really dressed up for a big date. A far cry from what today's kids usually wear to school. Report cards looked a lot different in those days as well. Graduation ceremonies then were pretty much the same as today, just a lot smaller. Back in the 50s, the senior prom was a big deal, and it still is today. And after the prom, those first Upper St. Clair seniors went bowling. While today's seniors have much more refined tastes and with price tags to match. Back in the 50s, Upper St. Clair students put on plays like The Little Dog Laughed, but they weren't nearly as elaborate as today's high school theatrical productions. And the stage crews are somewhat more well-equipped nowadays. Back then, the school cafeteria served green beans and cheese sauce or mashed potatoes with hamburger gravy. Cinnamon rolls were a big hit, and milk was the beverage of choice. No soft drinks in sight. Today's school cafeteria, it's now called the Nutrition Center, offers everything from pizza to panini, from soups and salads to sandwiches, from soft drinks to smoothies, catering to the most eclectic tastes imaginable. A favorite after-school hangout back 5 decades ago was the Moo Shop at the corner of Fort Couch Road and Route 19. It's no longer there. Kids today head to Chick-fil-A or Wendy's, neither of which existed in 1960. At night, kids back then did their homework using the good old World Book Encyclopedia for reference. If they wanted to see what foreign lands looked like, they could use their trusty Viewmasters. There were no Blackberries, no iPhones, no internet, and no Google. Television had just come out back in the 50s, but shows were in black and white only. There also wasn't any cable or satellite back then, just 3 or 4 broadcast channels. A hit show during the 50s was Howdy Doody, and studio wrestling was a popular local show. Today's high-definition, color, satellite, cable, and 3D television have come a long way in 50 years. Shows like Lost and Glee are big hits now, and Ryan Seacrest and comedian Daniel Tosh are popular with today's kids. Back then, a few lucky kids had cars or drove their parents' family car. These cars had a lot of chrome, huge tail fins, bench seats, white sidewall tires, and push-button radios, but no air conditioning or power windows, that's for sure. Of course, kids back then had to obey the speed laws, or they'd be pulled over by Upper St. Clair's finest. Today's cars are technologically advanced, even if their styling is retro. Back in 1960, nobody drove a BMW. And these days, you're more likely to get nabbed by a speed cam than a patrol car. What did kids do for fun back then? Well, they listened to lots of records played by radio disc jockeys like Porky Chedwick on WAMO. Porky was the first disc jockey to play the oldies. Porky spun the Dusties for St. Clair kids down at the Lebanon Lodge on Washington Road. FM radio was unknown back then. All stations were AM. KDKA and KQV had big audiences back then and played top 40 singers like Elvis Presley and Pat Boone. If you wanted to buy recorded music back then, you went to the local record store and bought a 45 RPM single or a long-playing hi-fi album. Today's kids tune into 96.1 KISS, to listen to Mikey and Big Bob, playing music like Dave Matthews Band and Black Eyed Peas. Today's iPods, iTunes, and DVDs were unknown back then. Movies were popular back in the 50s with stars like Doris Day, Rock Hudson, Paul Newman, and Elizabeth Taylor. St. Clair kids went to movies like The Dentist in Mount Lebanon or the Hollywood Dormont, or to downtown Pittsburgh, or at the local drive-ins like the South Park Drive-In. And after the movie, they would head for the Eaton Park or stop at Isley's for an ice cream cone. Today's hundreds of high-definition cable channels like ESPN were never dreamed of 50 years ago. Back then, kids went to amusement parks like Kennywood and Westview, and they rode downtown on the bus or the streetcar. Kids back then followed the Steelers, just like today. Bobby Lane was the Steelers' quarterback back then, but they weren't the Super Bowl champs just yet. In fact, the Super Bowl did not exist. In the summer, the Pirates played at Old Forbes Field in Oakland, and who can forget the famous Beat 'em Bucks World Championship team of 1960, and Bill Mazeroski's dramatic ninth-inning home run to beat the Yankees in Game 7. Summer back then was a time for heading to the beach or just hanging around the neighborhood being silly. Today's kids are likely to head to posh resorts like Hilton Head for the summer. Girls back then, just like girls now, enjoyed going shopping. Although they didn't have today's modern shopping malls, much less shopping online. Girls spent lots of time on the phone planning cool parties, just like they do these days, but with more high-tech ways to stay in touch. Kids back then said things like, "That's cool," or "What's happening, Daddy-O?" or "Hey man, don't have a cow." Today's St. Clair kids are taking subjects in high school like psychology, calculus, ceramics, anatomy, and Japanese. Kids back in the 50s wouldn't have known what an Aberzombie was either. But you know, kids are always just kids at heart, and so much about high school never really changes. There's always homework to do, and sports to play, and friends to make, fun things to do, and most of all, there's learning about yourself, about others, and about the world. That's the shared bond between every Upper St. Clair High School student, the learning. So congratulations to returning alumni, recent graduates, and current students on your shared heritage of excellence. All hail to the Panthers' reign and to dear old Upper St. Clair.
Please pay your attention up here to the chairman of the reunion, Miss Diane Tracy, and Dr. O'Toole. Diane's going to make a presentation to the school district.
Welcome. We're so glad to be back here. Dr. O'Toole, the class of 1960, the pioneering class, and the class of 1961 also, are proud to present to you and the school a plaque dedicated to our classes and to Upper St. Clair, the schools of excellence, with all the names of our graduates and our administrators at the bottom. This is to hang in your school. Thank you very much. Wonderful.
Thank you very much. I accept it proudly on behalf of the school district. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My privilege to present the 2010-2000 edition of the Varsity Cheerleaders and Upper St. Clair Band. Mr. McHale, when you're ready. Thank you, varsity cheerleaders. We'll see more of them this evening. I'd like to have one of the members of the class of 1960 stand to be recognized, Mr. Robert Glenn. Mr. Robert Glenn wrote the alma mater, and he also wrote a new stanza of that with some of our students, and that's going to be presented right now. All right, nice round of applause. Thank you. You may leave the stage. The band will conclude with Nova Lino for the dedication of the high school in 1999. Former Upper St. Clair resident Sam Hazo, an alum, wrote this. It incorporates the alma mater and sections of the fight song. Mr. Piquel. Class of 13, class of 14, you're dismissed. We'll see you at the gate tonight.